The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Good morning. Today I'm going to be talking about the great matter for which we train. That sounds like a mouthful, and it is. And it's something for which I'll offer a few names. It's a subject that's been niggling at me, or nibbling in a certain way at me, since the beginning of the year. Maybe because of the sense that time's passing, and I'm quite a bit closer to the end of life than to the beginning of it at this point. But it's coming up for me that this is a good thing to talk about. The Buddha said, there is an unborn, uncreated, unchanging, undying. And because of this, there is an escape from that which is born, created, changing, and which dies, the world of suffering. Were it not so, there would be no escape. This is from a scripture called the Udana, and I can give you the chapter and verse afterwards if you'd like it. To know and to live with that which is unborn and undying is to know and live with the cessation of suffering, the great matter for which we train. There's a lovely reference to it from one of our festival offertories. The Dharma body of the Buddha cannot be seen so long as one is within duality, for it is beyond birth and death, filling all things. Beyond birth and death is the unborn, undying, filling all things. Although this topic has been coming up as good to offer a talk on for some months, misgivings arose in force when I began considering it, along with an acute awareness of some of my shortcomings as they showed themselves in daily life. The thought was, who do you think you are? How dare you presume to talk about this? Leave it for those who know what they're talking about. The word humility came up, as in, aren't you a bit lacking in humility? That wasn't quite the right word, as it turned out, humility, but it's close. It was an awareness that it brought of some arrogance in my attitude, and painful as this awareness was, it sent me in the direction of giving this talk relying more on the words of the great masters than on my own words. So you'll hear me quote more than usual. What brings us here? That's a question we all ask ourselves, and I find it helpful to ask myself this question as often as I can possibly remember to do it. The push and pull of business, family, world events, plumbing problems, all can distract us from our purpose for living. They don't need to, but they can. They can pull us off center. This morning we've spent 40 minutes just looking at a wall. What in the name of heaven brought us all here together to sit and look at a wall? What could possibly be the purpose of such an activity? There is an unborn, undying, that which speaks in silence and in stillness. It is impossible to name or describe in words, and Buddhists sometimes tend to describe it by saying what it is not. Emptiness, void, unstained, and pure, and so on. The word Dharmakaya, or Dharma body of the Buddha, the body of truth, which is truth itself, works okay for me, so I'll use that. My master used many words: the eternal, the unborn, the cosmic Buddha, and so on. It doesn't really matter. Any name will do, as long as we all know what we're talking about. And we can know what we're talking about. Great Master Kazan spoke of this when he said, "Pure meditation opens us so that we may directly realize the foundation of our minds and dwell content within our own Buddha nature." I'm going to read that again with a little more of the text that accompanies it. Pure meditation opens us so that we may directly realize the foundation, with a capital F, of our minds and dwell content within our own Buddha nature. Body and mind both drop off, with no clinging to sitting up or lying down. Hence, there are no discriminatory thoughts of this is good or this is bad. You penetrate into and go on beyond the multitude of notions and theories about delusion versus enlightenment. You leave far behind the boundary between ordinary beings and Buddhas. Therefore, you cease to pant after the myriad phenomena and let go of all attachments to them. In my master's words, it is enough to know the unborn, or the Dharmakaya, or the truth, or that which is. It is enough, and we can all do this. Great Master Kazan said to dwell content within our own Buddha nature. And that brings me to contentment, which I'd also like to read a little bit about. Contentment, from the scripture of the Buddha's last teachings. Let's see. I'm a little bit slow with the book, please forgive me. The Buddha said, "If you wish to be free from miseries and woes, look into contentment, which is synonymous with knowing what is enough." As my master said, it is enough to know the unborn, undying. So look into contentment, which is synonymous with knowing what is enough. The teaching of contentment is none other than the location of true wealth, ease, security, and peace. The person who is contented, though he sleeps upon the bare ground, is still at ease and satisfied. Someone who is discontented, even if he were ensconced in a celestial palace, would still not find this tallying with his ideas and tastes. The one who is discontented, though rich, is poor. The person who is contented, though poor, is rich. The one who is discontented always does what his 5 desires latch onto. He does that which causes grief to and arouses the compassionate pity of one who is contented. This is what I mean by the term contentment. To be content is to be satisfied. To be satisfied is to know that nothing is lacking, that we have everything we need. It has happened to me more than once, and not just since the age of, say, 60, but even before that I've lost my glasses. This isn't one of those occasions, by the way. That I've lost my glasses and spent time and experienced frustration in looking for them, only to find them at last right where they belong, on my face, in front of my eyes. It sounds hard to believe, but it's true. From a spiritual point of view, it can be that easy to believe that we've lost that which the Buddha described as unborn, undying, to become dissatisfied and content, to feel like, what's the point? And even to give up religious practice. It is enough to know the great Dharmakaya. There is no need to search or strive for anything more. Look around you. It is enough. Look at the work that is right in front of you, even that tedious chore you dislike so much. It is enough to know the Dharmakaya in all these things and in everything. May I offer here a caution regarding the effort to know that which is immeasurable by the use of the intellect. My master warned about the danger of trying to sort things out in our heads instead of just being content to know the unborn. She said, just let it be enough to know the unborn and to feel it coursing through your veins. Don't try to do more. And when it is time to act, trust it to guide you instead of trying to figure out everything with your mind. And I'll add, remember, your mind and Buddha nature are not two. Contentment is a remedy for the driving need to search and strive. Toward the beginning, I mentioned the word humility in the context of painful awareness of my shortcomings, and said it wasn't quite the word I'd been looking for. That word turned out to be modesty. And here I'll go back to the scripture of the Buddha's last teachings in order to read something of the Buddha's teaching on modesty. It's a word I long misunderstood in my life. Let's see. So the Buddha is talking to his disciples at the time just before his death, and he's exhorting them not to doze off, not to be complacent, to do their training. He is using a metaphor of a poisonous serpent for a defiling passion. I mentioned shortcomings, and defiling passions are things that are related to shortcomings. Defiling passions are lust and greed and anger and hatred and jealousy and such things that afflict us. So he's telling his followers they must quickly snare this serpent by keeping to the precepts. Drive it off and remove it from your room. And once it has departed, you can sleep peacefully and in safety. If it does not depart and you close your eyes to it, you are the same as a person who lacks true modesty. That is, you will lack awareness of your susceptibilities and remorse for your shortcomings. For of all things splendorous, modesty is foremost. It is as a cast iron restraint, which can restrain others without recourse to any other thing. You should always act with a modest heart, without neglecting it, even for a short while. If you separate yourself from your feelings of modesty, then you lose merit and virtue. When there are people who are modest, then there will be good teaching. If people lack modesty, There is no difference between them and birds or beasts. So, the Buddha was warning in this teaching about lack of awareness of one's shortcomings, calling it defiling passions, shortcomings. I like shortcomings because it doesn't sound as fixed as something like faults or character defects or something like that. It doesn't seem to, shortcomings doesn't carry for me any moral judgment. It implies to me something that can be trained, something that can be converted. So, shortcomings. And lack of awareness of these makes it impossible to convert them. The Buddha taught, do not go about trying to conceal your faults and shortcomings or display how different you are from deluded creatures. In making the 4 offerings, which are your joy in awakening your heart, your reverence for the Dharma, your resolve to train, and your practice, know your capacity and be content with that. There's the word content again. And something of a warning, in practicing contentment, we need to keep our eyes open for complacency. There's always the fine line between things. Contentment is knowing that it is enough to know the unborn, undying Buddha nature. Complacency is being satisfied with things, with the way we are, just as we are, and not aspiring to convert our shortcomings. It's sort of settling back into drowsiness and saying, oh, well, okay, I'm okay. Of course you are. And it's still good to train ourselves every breath until the last one. Knowing what is enough also includes always going on beyond. Going on beyond, and always going on beyond. And in practicing modesty, likewise, it's good to keep our eyes open for the slip into inadequacy. Inadequacy is not modesty. To quote from a recent lecture during a recent retreat, inadequacy is a mountain of selfishness. It isn't the same as modesty. It's all about me. I'm no good. I'm short. I'm crabby. I'm grouchy. I'm no good. I'll never be any good. All those people out there are good, that are tall, that aren't grouchy, and I'm no good. Well, there you are. That's the self, isn't it? That's turning one's back on knowing the unborn, undying, that is part of every one of us, oneself included. So it's a tricky process. It could seem paradoxical. Yes, we're content to know that we are the Buddha nature and that everything in us is of the Buddha nature. And let's not be complacent and say, all right, well, then it doesn't matter if I'm grouchy, does it? Yes, it matters. So, modesty, as I said, isn't the same as inadequacy, and it includes awareness of our strengths as well as our shortcomings. So that's all I have today. In conclusion, I'd like to go back where we started. There is an unborn, uncreated, unconditioned, undying. If there were not, there would be no escape from this world of suffering. But since there is liberation from suffering. May we all find it quickly. Thank you.